appreciate and enjoy nature and each other.
And
Ta-da!
all right.
Blah blah.
shine goes everywhere. Its temple, all space, its shrine, the good heart, its creed, all truth, its ritual works of love, its profession of faith and divine living.
and welcome. Welcome to River Road Unitarian Universalist congregation. Welcome to this community of community, spirit, and service. Welcome to this place where we bring our full selves, our joys, our sorrows, all that we are, this place where we are blessed to gather each week to explore what it means to be fully human, fully together. As September continues to unwind, we continue to move deeper into our theme of belonging. What it means to belong to this place, to one another, what it means to belong in this world. And as we've come together this morning, now is the time where we get to turn to our neighbor, to greet, to say hi, to say good morning. Good morning. That was beautiful. Thank you. Good morning. That was beautiful. Thank you. Good to see you. Good morning. Back to our seats. I want to invite you to rise as you are willing and able for our opening hymn. The choir's going to sing the first verse for us. The words, the lyrics will be up on the screen before you. Our hymn is Here We Have Gathered. Please join us in singing this morning.
I would like to invite forward anybody who would like to help me with this particular time for all ages, and I mean all ages. Mostly if children and youth are comfortable coming forward. I promise today there's no costumes and significantly less awkwardness than last week. So if you would be willing to help me out, I'd be so excited. Audrey and Ellis I already recruited, so you gotta come over here now. Also, adults are welcome, but you have to have limber enough knees to sit on the floor. That's all I'm saying. So, here's the thing. And you can come up at any time or honestly stay put. It's fine. It's all fine. I'm not lonely up here at all, Mendenhall Coons. I'm not lonely in any way. Come on up. Thank you. Can I just note, Mr. Salunas, a adult formed in the crucible of this place, doesn't want his minister to be awkward and alone. Thank you. Thank you, dude. All right, so here's the situation. And you could sit, and then I'm going to act like you're 8 again. So a person, come on up. A person could reasonably ask, what is it that unites Unitarian Universalists together, given that it is not our business to tell you what you believe? Like, if we tried to tell you what you believe, you'd be like, sorry, Reverend Nancy, right? So what is it that unites us when we believe many different things? And one way we like to think about it is that we are united by the promises we make to each other. Now, a fancy religious word for this is covenant. What it means is promises from the heart. They're promises not about what we're supposed to believe or even exactly what we're supposed to do, but promises about how we want to be together. And today is the very first day of the congregational year when in our Sunday school classes, the kids are going to start working on the covenant, the promises from the heart that they make to each other in their classrooms. And to guide that, we wanted today to actually read you the covenant that the elementary age kids here at River Road made last year. Take it away.
We, the members of the elementary school RE group at RRUUC, promise to be friendly, be loving and respectful, be kind, follow the golden rule, but also pay attention and treat others the way they want to be treated. Care for the earth. Take mask breaks and wellness breaks. Be generous with each other and give back to our community. Think before talking. Consider the perspective of others. Be curious, not judgmental. Take turns. Listen while others talk. Appreciate and enjoy nature and each other. Ta-da!
All right. So here's my question, and here's why I needed help. So when we think about the promises from the heart that we make to each other, let's see if we can come up with some ideas, some promises that we can make to each other about how we're going to be together right here in the Sunday service. And don't worry, you all out there can call them out too. I will try to hear and jot them down. But do you all have any ideas? Promises that we can make to each other right here in the Sunday service? Yes. Be kind. Sold. Done. All right. What else? Yeah. Be careful or be cheerful? Careful. Good, because I don't want to make anybody promise to be cheerful. All right. But careful, 100%. Yeah. Listen to others. All right. Man, that means that I have to do that even when I want to talk and I have a microphone. Yes.
Be a good person.
Be a good person. All right. Toss it out. What you got?
Appreciate what other people can do to you.
Amen. Appreciate what other people can do to you. That is powerful in a lot of ways. It talks about the power that other people have in our lives. All right. Anybody else up here at the front? Yes, sir.
Contribute what you are willing or able.
Oh, amen. Contribute what you are willing and able. Because you know what? Congregations do not exist unless we choose to make them so, and the work we do does not happen unless we do it. All right, let's take 3 from the crowd. What do you say, gang? Yes. Hold on. Treat others the way you want to be treated. 2 more from the crowd. Adults? You just feel like the promises have all already been made. Heidi. Appreciate nature, says the communications manager of the Earth Ministry team. Anybody else? Be focused and pay attention. All right. All right, I'm going to go golden rule. Be focused. Love nature. So, my commitment to you all is that as you head to your religious education classes and we stay in this space, we'll work together to be informed by these promises so that all of us can feel safer in this space together. Promises are the most sacred thing we can make with each other and with the holy and with our own hearts. And it is such an honor to make big promises from the heart with all of you. Thank you, and we're going to head out to religious education classes. What a blessing to be together. Thank you for saving my butt today. In all sorts of ways. We come together in this place in laughter and in joy, in sorrow and in celebration. And it is my great honor this morning to lift up some of the joys and concerns that we hold before the whole community, knowing that you today bring your own joys and concerns, your own laughter and tears, and you are welcome at any point in the service to come here at the front or in the back and light a candle for what lies on the silent sanctuary of your heart. But just a couple that just need to be shared for all of us. Firstly, we had a big wedding here last week. Carrie Hutchison was in here. I think she headed off to be with the RE classes. Carrie Hutchison and Eric Connor were married right here last Saturday with dancing and with delight. What an honor to just party and celebrate the love among River Roaders and in our beloved community. It was a wonderful gift. We also lift up today Yana Rudnick, a longtime River Road member who suffered an unexpected and truly quite shocking stroke on September 7th, dying last week near Boulder, Colorado. Now, Yana was a tremendous star watcher. She was a landscape painter and a gardener. As a Unitarian Universalist formed in this place, she believed in the significance of small actions of love and acceptance, and she taught second grade religious education here at River Road for a very long time. She designed a curriculum here at River Road that was shared around the country to build multicultural awareness for kids. And in lieu of flowers, Yana's family asked simply that we take a few minutes when we are able, tonight or another night, to gaze up at the stars and remember that the world is but a canvas for our imaginations. I also want to finally lift up the fact that 2 Sundays ago, I was blessed to be a guest of honor at the worship service of our partner congregation, Scotland AME Zion Church, which worships in the fellowship hall shortly after we head out on Sunday morning, to share with them proceeds of fully half of what we made at our River Road Bazaar, which was a labor of love and devotion from literally hundreds of you, some of whom in this room worked your very fingers to the bone. When I arrived to share that generosity with them, I was blessed to find that, in fact, the bishop of the Chesapeake area AME Zion congregations was there to receive and to pray over our generosity. Scotland AME Zion and their friends and community prayed and sang and told us this is what it looks like to be each other's people. I wept, and I was grateful for them, and most of all, grateful for you. It is a joy to do what we do together.
I now want to invite you into a moment of stillness, a time of rootedness and connection, a time when we bridge in our lives from the mundane to the sacred, a time where we feel one another's presence in this place. I invite you to root yourself to where you are, perhaps closing your eyes, lowering your gaze, and coming directly into this moment. Spirit of life and love, we call your spirit into this place. We invite an opening of our hearts, a connection of who we are right here in this moment. As we gather here each week, we bring so much in our hearts. We carry so much in our lives. And when we enter into this time together, when we enter into this space, we don't do it to escape, but to fully be with what is in our lives. We gather the Spirit in each one of our hearts to join our spirit with one another. We continue to lift our hearts out to those who can't make it with us, those struggling with isolation, those struggling to belong. Our hearts are lifted to those who are dealing with any kind, any variety of what is out there right now. Those still struggling with illness, those still struggling with the pandemic, those who are still struggling in their lives. May we be a people of connection. May we be a people who create a place that we can come and weather the storm together. May we hold the fullness of who we are in our hearts as we move into this day, into this week, and into this year. What a blessing it is to gather in community. What a blessing it is to join our hearts with one another, to move into that which is bigger than all of us, yet created by each one of us. What a sacred joy, what a blessing it is this morning. May we hold that in our hearts. May it always be so. Ashe, and blessed be.
Everything we do together is an expression of who it is we want to be together. And that includes the ways in which we give. We give of our time, our talent, our treasure. We give of our commitments, large and small. We give in the willingness to do first things so that mighty things might follow. This morning in our time of offering, I want to invite you, as always, to give as you're willing and able to the work of this, our community of freely chosen faith. Some of you perhaps by now know the drill. You can text to give 73256. You can also give right onto our website or in the gift box right back there. We also invite you, led by our Earth Ministry team, to consider one small step in this year of climate reset. You can give one effort to align yourself with a commitment to the whole of the holy and the sustaining of this planet. You can find those 3 small steps on the website. You can also offer them up by reading the e-weekly, where everything will be linked. We begin one small thing at a time, and it is our great blessing both to give and to receive.
Author, activist, and theologian Anne Lamott writes that the opposite of faith is not doubt, but certainty. Certainty is missing the point entirely. Faith includes noticing the mess, the emptiness, the discomfort, and letting it be there until some light returns. Faith also means reaching deeply within for the sense one was born with, the sense, for example, to go for a walk. I grew up in a faith tradition that had all the answers. There was a scripture for everything, a parable for every question, a verse for every doubt. And in fact, there were so many verses that were quoted so often that sometimes things that weren't actually scripture crept into these verses. One such non-scriptural verse that I heard often was to have a childlike faith. Now, once I got older and eventually left that tradition, that phrase would always fill me with all kinds of ick. I interpreted it as believing without question, accepting the word is as it is, and to give your doubt away. And perhaps that is exactly what the intention was. But now that I'm no longer a child, and now that I have children in my life that I know and that I care for, I understand this in a completely different way. I think having a childlike faith is kind of the point of it all. It's kind of where it begins. Why? Because children approach life with a beginner's mind. A mind full of mystery and wonder, a mind full of possibility. So now as a humanist, I get something different from that adage, something much more meaningful to me, something that's worthy of a challenge, but possible all the same. To approach faith without certainty, to grow into the mystery and to experience revelation unfolding before me. See, although I grew up in a faith tradition that had all the answers, I always doubted my faith because fundamentally I felt flawed and unworthy because the answers that I had didn't speak to my truth. And at the same time, there are still times when I miss that level of certainty promised through creed-based religion. I miss having those things that we can say that we all believe in together beyond the shadow of a doubt. And I miss having scripture and shared stories and agreement on anything, even if it was only ever at the surface level. There's something that felt so much easier about that. But of course, not really. Because when you get beneath the surface of anything, there's nothing simple or easy about any faith. Once you dig beneath the surface of the scripture and of the words of any tradition, any spiritual path, any organized religion, you get to that complexity. And that's where you start to get to the beauty and the importance of faith community, because we get to dig into all of that together. All of that complexity, all of the complications, we get to explore what that means. And of course, as Unitarian Universalists, we do have sacred texts. It just so happens that we find sacred and holy in a variety of sources. We do have shared stories. We have collective rituals. We do those rituals all the time. We did a ritual like that just last week. And just like any other faith tradition out there, we can water down what we do and who we are. We can hide behind policy and procedure. We can decide not to do the work or the digging because just like society, we are a reflection of what is out there. We are not apart from it. So back in my social worker days in Tennessee, my early days of being a UU, as a mental health social worker, I would go throughout the community and I would meet people where they were at. I had appointments in all kinds of places, and there was one day when I had an appointment with a client at a very small Southern Baptist church. My client was there to prep for some event like us church folk do, and that was the only space that they had for me that week, so I went to see them there. And while waiting for my client to finish up something that they were doing, the church's pastor came out to talk to me and say hi, just a friendly little chat. Now, I don't know how many of you are from the South or what you know about the South, but upon meeting someone, it's a very common question to ask them where they go to church. It's like DC's version of asking where you go to work. It's like Berkeley's version of asking what's your nonprofit. It's like San Francisco's version of asking where is your startup. It is a way of networking in the South. So it wasn't weird when this Baptist minister asked me where I went to church, but being a new UU, I had to tell him something kind of awkward, that I'm a Unitarian Universalist. Now, either one of two things will happen when you do that. Either they don't know about us, or they do. He happened to have heard about us, and the barrage of questions that fell upon me for the next 10 to 15 minutes. So y'all just believe whatever you want over there. You just think we die and disappear into nothingness. You don't believe anything. You believe everything. You don't believe in a heaven or a hell. And the whole time I'm standing there and I'm just trying to hold my ground, but all I can say is, well, yes and no. Sometimes, maybe, not always. Some of us do, some of us don't. We used to, we don't anymore. We do now. We didn't used to. All I could offer this man who had all the answers was all of our uncertainty. All I could offer him were tensions. Of course, the tension of being a Unitarian Universalist means being a religiously progressive person in a faith of many other religiously progressive people. And let me just say as a side note, I felt Unitarian Universalism long before I understood it. And I understood Unitarian Universalism long before I could explain it to anyone. So all I had to offer him were tensions. All I had to offer him were tensions of being in a complex system of beliefs and backgrounds and experiences. And this was before my call to ministry. This was before seminary. This was before any of it. Now, of course, in the following years, I did develop a sense of who I am and why I'm here in this faith. But I've always been left with a question of why we're all here. And not in a snarky sense, but in a deep desire to understand sense. Why do we choose to gather? Why do we choose to gather as atheists, as humanists, as Buddhists, as pagans, as spiritualists, as none of it, as all of it? What draws us into community together? What are the threads that weave our complex tapestry? Now, of course, this is a time where we could talk about the 8 principles, we could talk about the 6 sources of faith, but today I want to explore covenant. Covenant, which is something central to most of our Unitarian Universalist communities and even our larger association in Boston, covenants that we can find all over our community here at River Road, in our faith formation programs, in our small groups, in our governance committees. And we even have a covenant here at River Road. Many of you were around for its crafting in 2018. If you look up our covenant on the website, you'll see the language there that states that a covenant is a declaration of how we desire to be together. That it is an aspirational document, a promise we make to ourselves, a promise we make to one another, and an acknowledgement that we need one another to make this community happen. But we didn't get this covenant out of nowhere. Nor did we go to the store and purchase it or get on Amazon and find it. And although we did create this covenant altogether, inspired by other covenants of other UU churches, there's something deeper still. So the first question for us to explore this morning is, where does covenant come from? So as we ponder these questions this morning, we'll be turning to our UU siblings and even some of our UU ancestors for their take and their experience of covenanting. And so for this question as to where do covenants come from, we'll turn to the Reverend Rebecca Parker, who's just down the street based in DC. So in 1998 at the General Assembly in Rochester, she shared these following words about covenant. She says, "We receive who we are before we choose who we will become. As human beings, our lives begin and never leave the soil of this earth that shapes us through blood, kinship, genes, culture, associations, social systems, networks of relationships, and extended communities, even when we do not directly know the people whose lives are linked with ours. Our life is in relationship to theirs. And that is how it is with covenant as well, she says. We are born into relationship before we shape relationships with our conscious intention. We inherit covenant before we create covenant. And I'll say that one more time. We inherit covenant before we create covenant. And I'd go on to say that the covenant that we create in the space is then inherited by those who come after us like one beautiful cycle. Or as Octavia Butler would say it, all that we touch, we change, and all that we change changes us. Our words and our language only give shape to that which has been being shaped in this space, pointing to the co-creation of something that has always been much larger than any of us alone, and much more ancient than any of us together. I somehow think of it like an excavation, where we dig through all of the soil and we brush off the dirt to discover what was always there, what was put and planted there for us. Reverend Rebecca Parker reminds us that covenant is brought to us by being in grace and sustained by practice. She says that our verbal promises are the frosting on the cake, but they're not the cake itself. They may help us keep the covenant we're in, but our words are not the covenant itself. Which leads us to our second pondering this morning. Once we have this covenant that we've excavated, how do we practice it? How does it live through us? So here we turn to the Reverend Erica Barron, who shares that understanding covenants as a practice means the words on the page after we're done writing are not the covenant. They are the words that point toward the covenant. The covenant lives in the action of hearing what others need from us and making those promises, of trying to keep our own promises to others, and of continually learning better and doing better as we gain new skills. It means knowing for sure that our covenants will be incomplete because we are incomplete. And we bring our areas of unskillfulness and restriction of self and others into this act of making and trying to keep our promises. She says, so we practice, we learn, we practice some more, we reflect, we listen to others asking for new promises or for deeper fidelity to existing ones, and we practice some more. It's in the continual practice and listening and reflection that the possibility of covenant reveals itself. It is through practice that a liberating version of covenant becomes possible. The possibility of covenant reveals itself, and a liberating version of covenant becomes possible. Now, one of the tenets of our shared faith is that revelation is not sealed. We have not stopped learning or growing or messing up. We have not yet figured out the right way, the best way, or the only way. And the promises that we make through covenant are absolutely no different than who we are. It is a living document called forth by imperfect people, rooted in this tradition of descent. Revelation is not sealed, and at our best, we are a people of transformation, a people of change, who, for better or for worse, belong to each other. And for better or for worse, we belong to this tradition. Which brings us to our final question. Why? Why am I standing up here talking about covenant? Why did we make one just now? Why does it matter so much in these communities? And for that, we'd have to go back. We'd have to go way back. We'd have to go way back to our forebearers, and there's a lot to be said on that I will not say here because this is not a TED Talk and this is not a lecture. So I'll encourage you to turn to the many UU historians out there. But suffice to say, in separating from the Church of England, a tradition that was steeped in hierarchy and suppression and absolute power, our Puritan forebears sought to create communities. They sought to create churches that actively resisted that kind of oppression through the practices of a covenanted church life. So when we're in here talking about social justice, about social action, about liberation, we are not just doing that to be good people. That is a part of our inheritance as Unitarian Universalists. That is in the structure of who we are. Reverend Parker tells us that the making of church covenants asserted the power of people to determine their own lives and to choose who would govern them. It was grassroots empowerment, and it became the decisive factor in the rise of modern democracy. The covenant is at the heart of what we do when we choose to be together. None of what we do now, not our governance, our programming, our artistic expression, none of it is happenstance, and none of it came from nowhere. It is rooted. The Puritan scholar A.S.P. Woodhouse shares that. The congregation was the school of democracy. There, the humblest member might hear and join in the debate, might witness the discovery of the natural leader, and participate in that curious process by which there emerges from the clash of many minds a vision clear and a determination wiser than any single mind could achieve. Why do we come here? Why do we choose to gather when we could be anywhere else? That is the question remaining on our hearts this morning. And we have the path pointed ahead of us from that which came before us. The covenant is the soul of the place. It's the spirit that connects us not only to each other, but to that river of life that has gotten us to this point. And it's the same spirit that is woven throughout all of the spiritual and religious traditions, the spirit that moves among even the most conservative and fundamentalist teachings out there, the spirit that ebbs and flows in our hearts, that pulls us towards something deeper, a truth deep in our core, no matter what our beliefs are, no matter what our practices are, that we are each searching and seeking for connection. That belonging is important to each and every one of us, and that we are going through this world trying to make sense of who we are and who we are becoming. So what would I say to that Southern Baptist pastor now? Well, it'd probably actually be an email, and I would send them these words from Reverend Rebecca Parker. She says, by our act of being here, our act of worshiping in a Unitarian Universalist congregation, our act of structuring our life together to give room for the experience, voice, and vote of each person, our act of joining together to resist injustice, by these acts, our spirits have fallen into communion. We've fallen into communion with the feisty, free-spirited Puritans of 450 years ago who advocated freedom of religious conscience, who resisted the oppressive powers of the church. We've fallen into communion with the sweet-spirited Universalists of old who rejected a notion of God as a tyrant ruling by the threat of hell and named God as a gracious, creative presence who saves us through the power of love. We've fallen into communion with the deep-feeling transcendentalists insisting that religion cannot be found in the dry bones of the past, but discovered by us firsthand. We've fallen into communion with the all-embracing mystics who see truth manifest in diverse religious traditions. And we've fallen into communion with courageous humanists who dare to lift up the dignity and the strength of human beings, the power and importance of critical reason in a world that prefers human agency and critical and uncritical obedience. Or I would say in my own words, this is a brave space in which we choose to gather and we practice what it means to be fully human, fully in this world. I'd say that we come from a variety of experiences and backgrounds and differences, and that we are seekers and we're searchers with beginners' minds. And my, oh my, do we still have work to do, but this is where I can come fully as myself, as a humanist, as a queer Black woman of faith with a voice, and celebrate all that I am and all that we are together. And I'll take that over your certainty any day of the week. Blessings to you, Reverend Amanda. So as we move into our lives, as we move into this covenanted space that we choose freely, may we know in our hearts that the promises we make to ourselves, the promises we make to one another, and the promises that we make to this larger community are flowing in a vast river, connecting us to all of those who came before us and preparing us for all that is ahead. May we hold this covenant, this promise in our hearts, and may we move forward with the love and the promise of this community. May it always be so. Ashe, and blessed be.
Thank you, Shwai. Thank you, choir. Thank you, Cliff. Thank you to the religious education team that is hard at work crafting covenants as we speak, promises from the heart about what it takes to learn and to teach together. Thank you to our tech crew this morning. We have Tom and Hugh Abrams, Heldy and Scott. What a team. I also want to lift up the many ways that we can live our covenant together. Firstly, that today, this very day, we are delighted to have our first newcomers reception of this congregational year. If you are new or feeling new or would just like to hang out with a few other people who are finding their place among this merry band of oddballs, you are more than welcome. We'll have snacks, hors d'oeuvres, times to chat. Reverend Amanda and I will be there. It'll be right up the stairs or up the elevator in the back, and I'll stand back there to greet you. It'll be after the service today. I also want to invite you to ponder not only that easy first step in climate action, but the next step, which is our 4-part climate reset workshops. These workshops are going to invite you not just to do stuff, but to ponder and to go deep together, the ways in which you build climate resiliency in the face of a world of so much risk and ever glimmering hope. You can sign up for the Climate Reset workshops, which happen at all different times, online and in person throughout the course of the week. Find a schedule that works for you, and we're hoping to have as many River Roaders as possible participate. Our College Access fundraiser is also coming up next Saturday. Right now, registrations are pretty low, so we need you to ponder. It is online. Ponder if you can sign up and help participate in that event, which is our core missional priority to raise money to give scholarships to economically disadvantaged students who are recommended by their mentors for the hard work and incredible potential that they already put into their educational experience. Will be led in our College Access fundraiser online by Leah Morris, who is an amazing musician and friend of the congregation. So register now as soon as you can. Also, next week, we will have, after the service, an opportunity to sit. Look, Rita Parks is waving a banner for the College Access fundraiser. She's ready. Next week, after the service, we will have a 10th anniversary celebration party for a certain senior minister who has been very honored to be with you this decade. And finally, you can mark your calendars now for October 16th, when our social justice leaders will be gathering together for shared energy, hope, and vision for the coming year, and youth and children's choirs are starting up now. If you or a member of your family is an elementary school age up through high school age youth, it is one of the most vibrant traditions here in the life of our congregation, and there is room for you to join in. Rehearsals are Tuesday evenings. We'd love to have you, and I can't wait to see those youth and children's choirs singing right here in the chancel.
Our benediction this morning comes once again from the Reverend Rebecca Parker. Let us covenant with one another to keep faith with the source of life, knowing that we are not our own. Earth made us. Let us covenant with one another to keep the faith community of resistance, never to forget that life can be saved from that which threatens it, even by small bands of people choosing to put into practice an alternative way of life. And let us covenant with one another to seek for an ever deeper awareness of that which springs inwardly in us, even when our hearts are broken by our own failure or the failure of others cutting into our lives, even when we have done all we can and life is still broken. There is a universal love that has never broken faith with us and never will. This is our ground of hope and the reason we can be bold in seeking to fulfill the promise. Go now in peace. Blessed be.